Kris Oldland. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Field Service News. There's been a huge amount of mergers and acquisitions activity within our market across the last couple of years. We saw Core Systems recently acquired by SAP. Of course, GE Digital acquiring ServiceMax made huge news across the world for the sheer eye-watering almost $1 billion that they invested, a clear indicator of just how important service has become in the global economy. But a lot of these organisations, they're tending to focus on the larger field workforces, companies with 300, 500, 800 or more service engineers. But who's looking after those organisations that perhaps have 15, 20, maybe 30 field service engineers? I know for a matter of fact that there's a huge amount of companies with smaller workforces. And I also know that the solution provider marketplace for those organisations is very, very fractured. But one company that's trying to resolve that is Norwegian-based Asolvi. Now, Asolvi may be a new name for many of you, but perhaps some of the constituent names, Evatic, Rødseth or Tesseract, a company very well known here in the UK for innovation, may be more familiar. Asolvi is the bringing together of these three organisations. I talked to their CEO, Pål Rodseth, to find out more about the new brand, to find out what their plans are moving forwards and how they're working bringing these two together to bring a solution that's dedicated to the SMB sector across Europe. Paul, thanks for joining us. First things first, I think we spoke some time ago, maybe 2 years ago it was, when Tesseract were acquired and you were CEO of Evatic at that point. Since then, it seems that the new brand Asolvi, there's quite a lot of thinking that's gone into it. I can see from the design, from the logo, it seems very constructed. Maybe you can just start by telling us a little bit more about Asolvi.
I'm glad you think that there's some thinking behind it, because it certainly is. You're quite right in your start there. Asolvi today consists of 3 products, I would say, and it consists of 3 companies that have come together to one company. Just after the Tesseract acquisition in 2016, we started the process of thinking, who are we going to become when we grow up? And it was wrong to name the company after one product.
Sure.
So we started a process that eventually ended in the visual design, the graphical design you can see around us, and the new name. We had a lot of criteria for the new name, and eventually it ended up in Asolvi. Asolvi is supposed to give you association to solving problems, and that's what we do every day from customers. We had certain requirements on the naming, on the .com domain, and the name is, as you can see, constructed, and is unique. And we're going to fill meaning into the name Asolvi as we keep on building the company.
Is that why there's the 2 segments that remain? Because we've got the lovely little graphic that sits above the eye. Is that representative of space for future growth?
It represents the various products and companies that merged into become Asolvi. If you remember Tesseract, it had a cube or a tesseract as part of the symbol. Evatic had triangles as part of the symbol, as you can see. And in a similar way, Vinserv had squares. So we tried to combine what were in the old product names into the new identity and the new, so to say, visual identity. And as you can see, you can twist the cube and around. You can see the cube in it. You can see triangles, and you can see squares. And there's plenty of ways to manipulate that symbol for further products that will join the group.
Okay. One other point on that as well. The name itself, obviously we're speaking in English, it translates very easily into English. It strikes me as something that will be quite easily translated across various European languages. And I know that's part and parcel of the project that you guys are undertaking here, is to kind of build a cohesive brand that kind of builds upon the strengths of the components and is more of a European reaching brand. and each of the individual components. Was that part of the full process as well? The fact that Asolvi will work in Norwegian and English and Swedish and perhaps in the future French and etc. elsewhere?
We've obviously had that as one of our criteria. We do have a pan-European approach to what we do, and the name should work in any languages we have, and we were quite firm that we wanted a .com domain and not an individual country domain. We still believe that the service management software industry in Europe is too fragmented. There's too small players that will not be able to take the technology shift that the customers require. So we do expect to continue the consolidation in the industry, and we do want to be the leading force doing so.
To take that point, by bringing these three companies together, you've been able to obviously broaden each organisation's reach across Europe, and as you say, it's this very pan-European focus that you have now. Have you found any unexpected challenges in specific different geographies, nationalities, etc., in terms of the customer expectations? Are there regional differences that you may not have anticipated, or that you find as a challenge at all?
We're seeing certain regional, what I would call challenges. As you know, we have expanded the Tesseract product into Europe, and we're starting off in Scandinavia first. We're seeing that we're getting quite some customer, what I should say, input into the products. Specifically the mobile aspect of our solutions, there's quite a high standard for what we need to achieve in the Nordics. And I think that is giving us valuable input to product development in the next version of Service Center that we'll start to see coming out later this year. But I think also we're seeing a good chance to harmonize a lot of the products as we go forward. We're currently rolling out a new help desk solution, which is based on Zendesk, which will be offered to our new products to all over the Asolvi brands, and that is showing that actually the sum of the parts is bigger together than it is on their own.
Paul, you mentioned the unexpected bonus there of having that wider database and the information being fed back, that kind of feedback loop being increased, I guess. I suppose a natural evolution of that, and something I'd be keen to find out a little bit more about, is having the expanded customer base. Are you able to kind of utilise that? Do you have plans to utilise that to be able to identify best practices across different markets, across different geographies, and share that with your own customer base? So it's kind of improving their service delivery, improving your own service delivery, and of course always tweaking the technology as well.
It gives us a better chance to calibrate our products to what the customer wants. Obviously the key driving force behind the Tesseract acquisition was to take the product out from a mainly UK-centric customer base to expand it into Europe, because it is a cloud-based solution. It has a lot of good functionalities, and we believe it's way ahead of a lot of the European competitors. Still, there are competitors out there, and we need to benchmark up against them. And just as I said, when it comes to the mobile functionality, we're getting very useful input to our product roadmap by having a broader customer base.
Okay. What are the challenges that many organisations that perhaps like yourselves have quite aggressive acquisitive nature, or have a very acquisitive strategy face, and I've seen this across a number of different industries, is that ability to kind of focus on the things that made them perfect and very strong what they did in the first place. Now, the three organisations, Evatic, Rødseth and Tesseract, have all kind of served, especially Evatic and Rødseth, served the document management sector very, very well. Tesseract has been very much geared towards the SMB folk sector. Is that going to be a core focus for you moving forward, is to continue to kind of serve that those smaller service organisations? And is that a fear that as your brand grows, that might get diluted at all?
Our key market is European SMBs, and we will continue to focus on European SMBs. An SMB in the UK is slightly different than an SMB in the Nordic. They tend to be slightly bigger. But we're not going to go after the large enterprises. We do happen to have some large enterprise customers, some for historic reasons, some for specific functionality reasons that we can provide them. But our key target market is SMB and will continue to be so.
Okay. So let's talk about the SMBs. I mean, what should service organisations with those smaller service workforces, how should they prioritise the technology that they're seeking to implement in order to make sure that they can sit on an equal footing when competing with those companies that are in the enterprise sector?
I think the most important thing for a service company is to focus on their operational procedures. And I think that is the key thing. We offer a decision support system, an operational decision support system, but they need to have their operational procedures in place. And that's something that the system can support, but the system in itself will not make you have a perfect service organization. And often do we see, unrealistic expectation for what the system can do. But if you don't have your procedures in place, the system will never get over and being better than any kind of operational procedures. The systems we sell and implement are complex operational products. And it's important to be realistic when you implement these solutions, as they tend to live with you for a long period of time. But as we do need to be able to crawl before we can walk and before we can run. The same goes for our customers. They need to be able to implement it and build on it over time. So providing professional support over the lifetime of the customer is something we're spending more and more time on to help our customers drive a more profitable and better service organization.
Absolutely. And to go back to that again, it's this opportunity for shared learnings that perhaps smaller companies don't get the opportunity so much to have, especially when they're working with smaller service management solution providers, because it's just that smaller pool. So I think it's really interesting to see how these companies can benefit all together from being in the same shared space. Is that something you're seeing?
We're seeing quite a lot of that actually, and our latest acquisition being Vinserv in Sweden in the fall of 2017. What we see from and what the rest of the organization has learned from Vinserv is their way to implement new customers. They've been very effective in getting the customers up and running much quicker than the Evatic and the Tesseract side. So the organization is learning from what they've been done to see how we can implement that in the other organizations. In a similar way, product development is now centered around core functionality for the group, not around a single product itself. We are designing and building a new contract engine, and that's going to be an engine that works for all the products, independent on which solution you run today. And that's how we're going to reinvent the Asolvi product portfolio, by being able to offer best-of-breed solutions for service organizations based upon the now 750 plus customers we have in 30 odd countries around the globe. There's a lot of learning in those customer base to be able to provide tomorrow's solutions.
Okay, Pål, and one final question from me. It's been a pretty phenomenal, some might say Herculean effort that you guys have gone through in the last couple of years, bringing together 3 companies, 3 separate countries of origin to come together under the one umbrella. And it seems like, from what you're saying, you're already starting to see some of the fruits of that hard work already coming together. But I remember when we spoke a couple of years ago, it was a very clear plan that you had. It was to build a network of organisations, essentially, across Europe that could serve the small to medium-sized market. What's the next scoop for Field Service News? How far down that line are you? Is it continued expansion, or is it time to take a little bit of a breather? What can you tell us about the next few steps for Asolvi?
we believe, and we continue to believe, that there's too many too small players. A lot of them might do well today, but we see the demand that our customers are putting on us as a software developer, and being able to spread those development resources among 750 customers is a different thing than spreading them around 100. We expect the consolidation to continue, and we want to be the driving force behind that European consolidation. So I hope to sit here the next time and talk about the next acquisition we've done, because we do expect to do so. When that happens, and if that happens, who knows? Now we are, as a group, much better prepared to do it than we were both when we did the Winserve acquisition and the Tesseract acquisition. We are now Asolvi, and Asolvi is the, so to say, umbrella for future products and companies to join under. We have systems in place. We've done acquisitions twice. Yes, we made our mistakes, and I'm sure we will make new mistakes, but we learn from it, and that makes us better as an organization. It makes us better to provide new products and to serve the larger community of customers that we have in the group.
Excellent. Well, Paul, I look forward to sitting down and talking about that next acquisition next time around, but for now, real pleasure speaking to you. Thanks again.
Thank you, Chris. Look forward to be back.